So on Monday here, very early in the week, on 15 March, at about 11 p.m., almost into Tuesday here in Central Europe, Mercury enters Pisces, finally finishing its time in Aquarius, where it was retrograde for a whole cycle in Aquarius, and then it comes now into Pisces. So I think this will be, again, a real sort of changing of the guard for our mercurial parts of our charts and our lives. Thinking, the communication, the analysis, the planning, the sports. Yeah, okay, so this is an interesting placement for Mercury because it's sign of exile and fall. So according to the ancient astrological systems, this placement for Mercury is maybe the darkest it gets for any planet because it's doubly maltreated. And my theory actually on this is it's one of those things that's so bad, it's so maltreated that it actually kind of becomes unique, very interesting, and a very rare placement that can add a lot of value. So let's just explore that. We think about Pisces as being this imaginal realm, potentially, or this expansive, diffuse part of the zodiac. And when we bring communication into that, we start dealing with things like that, communicating through dreams, imagination, intuition, almost nonsensical styles of knowing and of expression. And Mercury is the system of thinking. It's the systemized style of thinking, whereas the sun is more of the perceiver of everything. And when we start talking about a Mercury that's exiled and fallen, as that Mercury then wants to systematize thought, it gets very unconventional. And that's actually one strategy when you see a planet in its exile or fall. You can just think about that planet doing things in a way that's different than maybe convention. This is kind of the great poet placement. It's that poetry that sometimes doesn't make full sense when we read it. I'm sure you've all had that experience. You read some poetry and think, what was that? And the scholars would say this is the best poetry that exists, or that, these are some of the best poets alive. So that's what poetry is. It's metaphor. It's combining words in new ways. It's combining imagery and language and syntax in a different way to present something beautiful. But that's how Mercury here in Pisces can work. It's the way that we express ourselves that maybe sometimes that's maybe lost on others. It's actually my favorite phrase for this. What I say is lost on you because of that Mercury in Pisces making it somewhat elusive or metaphorical to where it might not fall on ears clearly into those other receiving ears. You can think about the idea of a drum beat. I think the side of music that might be Mercury is some of the more beat side, especially if you're using electronic music. You got the beats to keep things structured and to keep things moving. And the classic phrase, he's marching or she's marching or they're marching to the beat of their own drummer. That's what Mercury and Pisces can be. Just someone who's out on their own, doing their own thing. And I think this is where the fall and the exile comes in, is that if you're in a group that's like regimented or formalized, like school, and you're someone who's doing your own thing, marching to your own beat, you don't fit into those collective regiments, those collective, almost military style groupings, which the collective so often is. A groupthink, it's the group mind. We see that every day in society. There's this kind of collective hive mind. And if you're in the wilderness saying, hey, no, I don't like that, or I'm going to communicate differently, sometimes you might get excluded. So this Mercury in Pisces runs the risk of not being allowed into the marketplace, for example. Mercury's business and market, it's in selling. If you're so different in your thought and the way you communicate, you might not have access to those markets. So again, it's like a fallen or exiled energy. But of course, wonderful things can happen when you're out on your own island, doing your own thing, right? You might produce that book of poems that is lasting. Maybe Van Gogh, I haven't seen Van Gogh's chart, but I wouldn't be surprised if he had some Mercury, maybe even Mercury in Pisces. That's just a guess because he was ostracized from the art world and was off on his own, vision of what he saw and then made the painting. It feels to me very Piscean. Maybe he had Venus in Pisces, potentially. We'll have to get his chart up. And then this is the other thing about this placement, the dream realm, the realm of dreams. I really love thinking about the dream space here when we deal with Mercury and Pisces. Mercury is a planet that can represent dreams, especially the dreams that might be communicative from other realms. But think about a dream, the symbols that arrive in dreams, very strange energies, morphing forms. You're in one location and in the next moment you're in another room or another country or a whole different setting. That's how Mercury operates in Pisces. Strange, different, hard to get a grasp of. But remember, the feeling in a dream is often very clear. Sometimes a good way to work with dreams is what were you feeling? And that can help untangle what the message is. So feeling can arrive even though the package is very odd and disorienting. So that's kind of a Mercury and Pisces energy. So just in terms of the astrology and the configurations here, the first week about of Mercury's time in Pisces, Venus will still be there in its exalted state. And exaltation planets, I found, can sort of suck the energy sometimes out of a chart. They make that part of the chart give that planet attention. They're kind of attention seekers and attention grabbers. So I think Venus here in Pisces may suck some of the energy out of Mercury when it first enters into Pisces on Monday. It'll also be ruled by Venus in Venus's Egyptian term, and Venus is there, those late degrees exalted. But then remember, Venus leaves, the sun leaves this week, and it leaves Mercury in Pisces almost alone to fend for itself, save for Mars in Gemini, which Mercury will rule. So there's this Mars-Mercury dynamic that Mercury is left to contend with. I think this might underscore feeling lost on others, what I was describing earlier. If you don't have Mercury configured to the two benefics, Venus will be averse, Jupiter will be averse. You can't communicate or see to any planet but Mars. It's almost like the frustration that can come sometimes with not being understood. That is, I think, this Mercury in Pisces season once Venus leaves. It's this idea of being lost on others. Think about others looking at you and you're the dream state. You're maybe saying mumbling words, they can't hear you, they can't understand you. You may be feeling that, and then with Mars squaring and Mercury having to be responsible for that Mars and try to manage it while it's in Gemini, like I said, there may be a sense of lashing out or wanting to say why, or frustration. Why can't people understand me? Why am I not being understood? So watch that this week as you get into your Mercury and Pisces energetic. I would say lean more into the poetic side of life. I love just like cut-ups, the William Burroughs style cut-ups. He had a heavy Aquarian stellium, but it's still the same idea. You're chopping words and making something that's different and odd, and maybe you can put feeling words together, experiment with just the phraseology of your astrology or of your life. I like free writing. People that know me always talk about free writing. That's a really nice way to tap into this Mercury in Pisces. The surrealists, they were just doing this automatic writing, I think they called it, to get into something deeper. And that's how I would lean into this. And if there's frustration, bring it onto the page. Filter it back through the page, or through conversation with someone. Hey, can I talk? And just, hey, do you mind? Can I just verbalize some stuff? And they can just say, sure, I got 5 minutes. And then maybe you can just get some of it out. They might not even understand, but that's okay. We might need to try to verbalize or express here the strangeness and the feeling of disconnection that can come sometimes with Mercury and Pisces. And so then the other thing I'll just say is Jupiter now, right after Mercury comes into Pisces, so Jupiter will rule Mercury while it's in Pisces, but Jupiter, I think 6 hours later or something, comes and loses that dignity. So we're losing this dignified Jupiter in Aquarius. And I think that makes things even a little tougher. Now we get back to that rougher edge of Jupiter that's having to feel more of the Saturn and more of the restricted side of Aquarius. It will move into the Egyptian term of Mars. So there's this dynamic between Mars being ruled by Mercury in Gemini, Mercury in Pisces being ruled by Jupiter, and then Jupiter having that Egyptian term edge when it comes into Mars's term in Aquarius. And so yeah, just watch the frustration, watch feeling an expanded sense of frustration, or if there's restriction and blockage, just get through it, like I said, through this transmutation with the poetics. All right, enjoy this transit. I think it's a lovely actual transit. A lot of writers and poets do have this, so you might want to get into your poetic side during this time. As always, you can schedule astrology and tarot readings with me, sjanderson144.com. Click here to schedule a reading. It's right on the top. I look forward to working with you and to meeting you. And yeah, have a lovely, lovely week of astrology. Enjoy this birth of spring. The spring is here.